Hello, my name is Joe Cabrera, and this is a quick tutorial for Bard High School Early College Manhattan students and instructors on how to use the LIGHTBOARD in their auditorium. When you turn on your board, hopefully you'll get a screen like this. Um, if you don't, if it doesn't look exactly like this, but you do see this area up here, click on this Reset Screen button. If it doesn't show up like this, try clicking on the number 1 up here. These are our little workspaces. Basically, think of them as different windows of your browser for the internet. But if you don't see this, and it is on number 1, go ahead and click on number 2. On there, it should also have a Reset Screen button. What that does is basically resets everything to the same state. Now on this screen, we have a little magic sheet. These are the lights that we can have set up or are currently set up in the theatrical space. Over here are the controls of intensity for the lights. Over here is how we record, update, and label our cues. Up here is where we'll save our shows. Over here is how we delete our cues. And right here is how we can bring up work lights and blackouts. This is so for our LED units, we can control their lights, color, and down here is our cue list. So to begin, if there is a current show here, meaning there are cues here that you do not want to use, go ahead and go into workspace number 3 and click on Clear Cues. What this will do is it will get rid of all the cues that are currently in this area. The next thing we will do is we will go down here into our bottom right hand corner, click this up button. We will then go to File, Save As, and under Show File Archives, you will double click it and rename this show however you wish. For this example, we'll say Bard Example 1. As we can see up here, that is the name of this file. Just like in Microsoft Word, Save As creates a new file, whereas if we just continuously save, it saves it to the same file name. So now, every so often, after I've done a certain amount of steps in creating my show, I should go up and click Save Show. And what that will do is it saves my show under this name. Wonderful. Next, to turn on a light, all we need to do is click on it right here. And to turn it on, let's say I want to turn it on at 50% brightness. All you have to do is press this 50% right here. And as you can see, the light looks as though it's turned on, and the 50 is displayed right here to show that's its intensity. I can do 75. It goes to 75. I can press minus 10%, and it takes it down to 65, 55, 45. If I wanted to take it out, which means 0%, it is now out. One of the wonderful things you guys have are your LEDs. We can turn them on just the same. But the wonderful thing about them is we can change their color. So after you have them selected, now remember, in order to do these, we have to have the light selected. You can see them outlined right here and right here. Let's bring these up to 50. You can then come over here to this color picker and change the color. Now, as you can see, I want my light to be green, and over here, because it's an LED, it changes to the color green as well. So if you watch here, as I drag my mouse over here, we can see that the color gradually shifts and changes color to where I want it to go. Wonderful. Another way of selecting is to simply click this top area up here. What this does is it selects all the lights within this individual box. So if I wanted to select this, and I wanted to select all these, and I wanted to select, let's say, our right arms at the same time, which the right arms are the moving units we have, you can see that it selects everything within the box. To finish your selection, you can either continue doing your intensities, or you can press Enter on the board. Now, we have all these lights up right now, and let's say, excuse me, we want to record this as a cue. Say we want to record this as Q1. All we do is come right over here and press Record Cue. Down here, it has prompted us with Record Cue, and all we have to do is enter in the number we want to use. Let's say Record Cue 1. Enter. Wonderful. Our Q1 has been created. The next thing you need to do is label it so that we know what it's for. So let's come over here and click Label. It's basically a title for it so that we know this is the opening speech. Wonderful. The next thing you might want to do is change the time. The time is how fast the lights turn on and how fast the lights turn off. If we come right underneath the Record Cue button right here, we can click on Cue Time. It has prompted us down here to tell us what time it is. Currently, it is at 5 seconds. Let's say we wanted this to be very fast. So let's say we put it at 2 seconds. If you press Enter, 2 seconds is now the time. You can also choose to add a note here. Notes are right over here, and they're different than labels. Labels are basically the title of the cue, hence opening speech. A note would be something that's more personal, something like, let's say, go when speaker is halfway across stage. Now you don't need to have notes here. They're completely optional. Labels technically are optional as well, but they're immensely important to keep an organization of knowing what's happening. So you don't need to add notes, but if you wish to, there it is. Let's continue here, and let's just turn our strip lights on. And let's say we have these on at full. And let's turn all of our front lights on at full too. Let's record this as scene 1. Oops. Let's record this as Q1, Q2. And let's label it as scene 1. And let's make our time 3 seconds. Wonderful. Now, we have all these lights on, and the next thing we want to do is turn all of them off. Well, you could go through each individual one and turn them off one by one, but you can also click this blackout button right here, which, if you watch right here, all of them, it will turn them all to 0%. So let's record this as Q3 and label this as blackout. Wonderful. And let's just say we want this to be really fast. Let's make this Q times 0 immediately occur. And let's do this when she says, let's say, woman says, stop. Wonderful. Great. We've now created 3 scenes: opening speech, scene 1, and a blackout. Now, if you ever find yourself in a position where the lights are all off and you need to turn them on really quickly, or say it's dark and it's not safe on stage at the moment, what you can also click right here is work lights. What this will do is it'll bring on all your front lights and your strip lights and bring them up to 50%, just so there's some kind of light on stage for safety's sake. And to get rid of them, you can just go straight blackout like that. Wonderful. Just as a quick note, these LED sides, these are those little LED PARs that are currently, I think, in the downstairs black box theatrical space. They can be set up in a multitude of ways, whether they're footlights on your guys' stage if you choose to make them that way, or they can stay on the stands and become side lights. Because they're mobile, it's really up to you how you guys use them. Great. So, next thing we'll talk about is how to change a cue that you've created. So let's say, let's get out of that. We don't want to label our cue. To go to the next cue, obviously, as you guys might know, as you press the Go button, which this is a digital representation of the board that you guys have. But let's go into cue 1, and then we'll go into cue 2 right there. Wonderful. So we're in cue 2 right now. Now, say that we didn't like all of our front lights to be at full. We really only wanted like 2 of them out. So we need to update this. So let's say we wanted number 1 and number 5 to be out. So let's go out. And let's say we wanted number 2 and number 4 to really be about 75%, and 3, you know what, that's okay at full. You know what, no, we wanted a little bit lower at 90%. Great, so what do we do? Well, this isn't recorded into this current cue 2 right now. What we need to do is to update this cue. Now, there are 2 ways to do it. One is to update cue right here, and one is to update cue only. What update cue only means is, well, for now, we'll do update cue, and I'll explain the update cue only in just a moment. So we'll do update cue. So, as you can see, if we go between Q1 and Q2, spacebar is disabled. All right, let's fix this. And Q2, you can see that, let's work with channel 24 for now. Channel 24 stays at 50% between channel 1, scene Q1 and Q2. If I were to change this to be at 75% here, and let's just say I change it to blue, and I update the cue, it's blue and at 75% here, and when we go back, it goes back to 50 and violet. Wonderful, that makes sense. And when we go to our blackout, it's still a blackout. That's great. But here's the thing. Let's go over here now to 21. 21 stays at 50. If I make this go to 20, let's say full, and make it red, and I do update cue right here, what this does is something called tracking, which means now, when I go to scene 2 right here, it is now not 50% and purple, but full and red. The reason being is, if a light in a previous scene is the same as the light in the next scene, so if 1 and 2, this is the same, then if I change it in the previous scene, meaning if I change it in Q1, it will track and hold that information into the scenes after it. So because I changed this to red and full here, everything after it that originally was the same intensity and color will then be that as well. Now to prevent that, that's what the update queue only does. So let's go here and let's look at 23. Right now 23 over here is white and at full for both of these. Now if I only want this to be at 50% in the opening speech, and which is Q1, and then back to full and scene 1, which is Q2, this is what we do. So we're back in Q1. We select it, and let's say we want it out. Let's say 25%, and let's just say blue. We will do update queue only. That means even though this information is tracking to the next queue and all the ones after it that originally had the same information with intensity and color to, this is saying ignore that just for this queue. So when I do this, update queue only, Q2 now goes right back to white and full, and Q1 is back to 25% and blue. Now, that's very well and all. Let's say that we ended up not wanting this opening speech after all, and we need to delete this queue. How do we do that? Well, hey, look there. We've got a delete queue button. All you need to do is go to that queue. So let's say, oh, we're in Q2. Let's go back to Q1. And we need to make sure we're in Q1. You can tell because it's highlighted in amber. And we'll do delete queue right here. Down here, it's saying delete Q1. Q1 is what we want to delete. Please confirm. Press enter. And it is deleted. That's how we will delete our queues. Now, if you accidentally do something like this and you need to undo it, there is an undo button on the board. You will need to find it. It's right around, it's the estimated layout of the board. So here's the numpad. Here's your enter button. The undo button is right over here. The undo button is right here. Wonderful. So we've talked about the intensity, selecting the lights, recording the queue, queue time, labeling the queue, adding a note if need be, updating the queue, and what updating queue only does, deleting a queue, bringing up work lights, and making things a blackout. We've also talked about, I'll click it now, resetting the screen in case we need to. So, like I said, every few cues you write, you should save the show. All you need to do, again, like I said, is right here, click this little button right here, and your show is saved. Super simple, super easy. Now, our right arms right here, we can point them in different directions using our LIGHTBOARD. How do we do that? Well, the best way to do that with this is to click on this. Remember, you need to have it selected. Click on it and go right up here to the upper right-hand corner and click this right here. This is the pop-up moving light controls. Pop-up ML controls. ML is for moving lights. Right here is pan and tilt. What this will do is this will move our light forward and back, left and right. Now, if you get into here and it's a little backwards, and the pan and tilt isn't working quite the way you want, like say you want it to go forward, but it's actually going backwards, you can do an invert pan or an invert tilt, which basically means if I do this and it's actually going backwards, and if I do this and it's actually going towards the stage, and I want it to be opposite, I would do invert tilt. And it basically corrects that issue. If I was wanting to go left and it was going right and vice versa, I would do invert pan. It's as simple as that. And if I wanted to go back to its original location, you can click home. This little house situation right here, that's a home button. And when you're done moving it to where you need to move it, just click that little moving lights pop-up right there again. Now there is another way that you can select individual units. On the keypad, which again, this is a digital representation of it, you can see down here that this is channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those lights are those channels. So if I was to click 1, down here you'll see it says channel 1. If I was to click enter, look at that. Channel 1 is now selected. And there's another way of doing intensity as well. These buttons that we have over here, it's a quite simple and fast way to do it. You can also do it with the board. So because I have channel 1 selected, now remember, in order to edit a light or change a light's color or intensity, it has to be selected. So if I wanted to change this light's intensity using the keypad, I would click at, say I want to bring it to 50%, at, you can see down here it gives a little at symbol, 5, enter. This board automatically adds zeros to every number you put in. So if I wanted to add 5%, I would have to do a 0, 5, not 5, enter. 5, enter, adds a 0 automatically and makes it a 2-digit number. The reason for that is so that programming these boards can be a lot more efficient and speedily done. So that's how we do it. Clear, right here, what that does is it clears this line. So I have something typed in there. I just typed some random numbers. If you press clear, it's basically like a backspace. If for some reason things aren't really quite working, make sure that the GM, which is called the Grand Master, which is the little fader button on the middle/left of the board, is all the way up to 100%. This is a digital representation of it, but make sure it's up to 100%. Besides that, like I said, if you get into a show like this and let's say there's some strange things going on over here, and let's say this looks like that, and there's another, it looks something strange like this, and you're not sure what's going on, there's 2 things you can do. One is if you know that the show is not the show you want. Oh, let's ignore that. So if it's looking strange like that, come on over to number 2, click Reset Screen. Remember, 2 right here, Reset Screen, and it sets it all right back to normal. If you open it and it's a show that you don't like, let's do this just for a nice little example as well. Let's say this looks wrong as well, but you still have, this down here. And it's like, oh, the show isn't what I need, and I need to delete these things so I can create a completely new show. Just coming up to here, to number 3, and click on Clear Cues. What that'll do, again, is it'll delete your cues over here if you have a Q1. If not, record a Q1. Now, in order for this to work, you need to have a Q1. Click Clear Cues, click Enter to confirm, and it will take everything back to normal. Wonderful. Again, if you have any questions, please have your instructor reach out to Joe Cabrera, and I will do my best in a timely manner, not immediately, to help you guys out in solving one of your problems. Remember, I won't necessarily be available at short notice. Give me usually 24 hours to respond because we are all professionals and very busy people. Hopefully this has been enlightening and gives you a better understanding of how to use the board that you guys now have. Thank you very much.